CO, hello, and welcome to Double Feature Movie Club. I'm your host, Cade Thomas. This is our 30th episode, and it's also our final episode of the season 2, as we have called it halfway through the second season that we're doing. This is season 2 of the show, and I'm joined this week with Diane, as always.
As always, someone has to be here to tamper down Cade a little bit, keep him grounded.
It's very true. Very
Feet
true.
planted on the earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We would, if it wasn't, we would do a lot of weird stuff. But
right.
but we have to keep it a little grounded. And I thank you for holding my feet to the fire, Diane.
Well, it's all I can do.
Well, it's every 5 episodes, as always planned. Diane and I are the two hosts. That's what happens, and that's a tradition here, and we're not going to break it anymore. And we haven't.
No. We haven't.
So
we haven't tried to make it happen, but nor have we. Whatever.
Yeah. So I think it works out though. This is like I said, the last episode of the season, episode 30. Can you believe it, Diane? We've done 30 episodes this year.
That's 60 movies.
That's 60 movies.
Never in my lifetime did I think.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about it, you probably do watch 60 movies
that
you weren't planning to watch.
Yeah.
Maybe at the beginning of the year. I don't know. I know one thing for sure, Cade, that I would not have watched any of these movies if I had never met you.
Oh, that's sweet. I hope it's sweet. It's a fact more than anything, I guess.
It's just a fact. Actually, there were some that I did want to see and I just missed. So I'm glad that I did get the chance to watch them and talk about them with you.
Yeah, and I mean, had we've not had this podcast, I would say the overwhelming majority of them I wouldn't have watched. I mean, they're on lists that are like, oh, I need to get to that sometime. But actually sitting and watching them, these were on lists for a while. We've been planning this show for some time, and I have in various ideas, and so these were movies I've always wanted to see, but this gave me a reason to do it, and I've enjoyed talking about them with you, Diane. It's sweet. It's really a great show we have here, I think.
I think you're right, and I try, I try not to get too political, which I know I can do, and I try to bring the fun side of movie watching, which sometimes gets lost in the movie making process. So yeah, and I appreciate the movies that I got to watch, especially this season 2. This list of movies has been really good, and for anyone, for people who follow us and watch movies along with us, I think that they would agree. This was a much better list of movies, and I'm sure for season 3 it'll be even better.
Yeah. Great plug, Diane. And yeah, and that just answers. So
because I'll have more input into
it. So season 3, we'll announce that we will be returning in February. We'll announce the exact date later, but we will be returning in February. We'll take our January break and return at some point in February, and we'll announce that and everything. For the next batch of 15, each of our seasons will be these 15 episodes, so that's new going forward and everything. And we're putting together the list, and there's a lot of really good lists. We're trying to, first. We learned a lot. First season, I guess, was when we had a huge list and we just chose at random. Remember that? Where we'd pick a number.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it would be like, oh, please don't pick a horror movie, please don't. And every time it would be a horror movie.
Yeah, and what it did is it made like odd pairings that were not, and then second, we heard a lot of feedback of people being like, oh, you should kind of do sets of things, and I mean that would make sense as a double feature to have some sort of theme to each thing. So then we tried to we done that this year, where we are this season, that the second season here, second half of the year. Then we and it was I think it worked a lot better. It allowed us behind the scenes to plan a little bit more, and it made it a lot easier on everyone to sort of anticipate and to plan guests and everything, and to just kind of get our head around different things. And so I think I like that format a lot better, of planning ahead and having some sort of theme, or even like in tonight's case, two wildly different movies kind of makes it
Widely.
fun.
Wildly different, I'd say. I think too it was easier to line up guests.
Hmm.
To when you could say, "Here's the movies that you are going to watch," and then they could say, "I'm not interested,"
Hmm.
but so they kind of got to choose, and I
Yes.
and I like that. I mean, if I was going to be a guest on here, which originally that was the plan, I would have liked to have chosen the movies I was going to watch. As it turned out, though, I am your sidekick.
Yeah, you're my sidekick, Diane. I
That's
think
right.
I think we have a good banter thing
We
going on. We
do.
do, yeah.
We
And I'll tell
have
you
a good band.
what's different than some other ones. Like what I sit there and think of like what's sort of the angle with this. I mean, of course, we watched two movies, and there's a few different things I think that makes us stand out in interesting ways. I think it's the fact that we're not sort of watching new releases or anything. We kind of are going back and these films that are forgotten. I've talked to a few people that are like, what's interesting is like you'll oftentimes do a movie that is more well known or at least has some sort of name recognition, and then one that's obscure that they've never heard of. And sometimes that's intentional. Sometimes, yeah, it just sort of works out that way. But uh, I think that it's good for we're not sort of talking about like these are movies that we get to sort of talk about, and there's not a lot of conversation around these films in some cases, and that's fun. I think it's also good that we're not we don't have I think we have interesting perspectives where like a lot of the podcasts out there are people who are pseudo film critics or something that really do that and want to like dissect or do something interesting in that way. But you are a film fan, you enjoy movies, you enjoy movies on that level. And then I make films, and that's sort of my perspective with things, which is something you don't see, and especially don't see together.
Right. Yeah, and the fact that we're two different generations,
Yes,
it
that's another. Mhm.
obviously changes our perspective. Or I don't want to say change as much as
Mhm.
it gives you a perspective from the different generations. I know my friends who listen to the podcast that are my age,
Mhm.
they really appreciate hearing your perspective because they aren't always exposed to people your age
Mhm.
on a subject like this,
And that's
right?
I agree. Yes, that's totally true. And same goes for people, my friends
Oh,
that
I'm
are
sure.
exposed to.
I know your friends just love it. What the little old lady has to say about this now.
They do.
I
Well, I mean,
know they do.
I think our dynamic works because we're good
Yeah.
foils for each other, and I think in a lot of respects it is. I mean, there's a good friendship us underneath, and so I enjoy our podcast. Um, Without just tooting our own horn and all that about how great our
Okay.
podcast is.
Well, who else is going to really? Seriously.
Hey, if you
You
guys
hit
want
like,
to,
you
yeah,
subscribe, you punch
that
all the buttons.
exactly. If you want to
Make it
take any
real.
of those lines that we just said and put it in a review, that would be very nice.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I
We'll
look,
allow it.
I look at it this way. Cade's a professional and I'm an
Mhm.
amateur, but you need to see both. You need to have both
Yes.
perspectives. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
you absolutely
Because
do.
sometimes Cade will like a movie and I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and I think having those two perspectives helps people get a more balanced view of what a film is, because I think that like we're gonna have our top movies and our least favorite movies that we'll put out, and it's I think going to very much also show some differences, but also it probably we don't know what our lists are. It will have some similarities, so I think having those two things combined can help people get a unique view of these interesting films.
I think so
Anyways,
too.
oh, go
And
ahead.
I wonder if this season my worst film to have to
Mhm.
have set through to watch might be your best film.
Okay.
Could be
I
this
know there's
time.
two that better be off limits for you because you didn't really you didn't watch those of the episode that
Well,
you
I
missed.
well that's I did watch one of those movies.
Okay. Okay. The
Maybe not all the way through, but I did watch it.
I know that there's one that's in my worst that would anger one of our guests because I know they really liked it. That's all I'll say about that.
Okay.
But it's on one of my worst lists. But we'll talk about that. Look forward to that, is what I say.
I that's my favorite show of the season.
I agree.
That's what
Yeah.
I learned last time too. It was so much fun. Last time, we said and we struggled, we talked about, what your top five was, or my top five, or the bottom five and the
Hmm.
bottom fives, and then the top five. And it came down to it. We both had the same favorite movie of the season,
And least
which
favorite.
I thought was amazing. I
Yes.
did. I thought it was amazing because you looked at it from a filmmaker's perspective, right?
Hmm.
And I look at it from just enjoying the movie. Did it keep me interested? Did I like it? Did I, halfway through wonder if I had time to go to the bathroom? None of that stuff. It was really an entertaining movie. And so I just thought that was amazing.
Hmm.
But we'll see this time if it works out that
Oh,
way.
yeah, we will see. It's gonna be fascinating. It's gonna be fascinating.
Maybe he may or may not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ava did give us a little party,
Yeah.
whatever that's called, confetti with the what's it called? With the little blow horn thing. It's the
She,
what that they do at birthdays. What they call
yeah.
them?
There you
Those
go.
little things that shoot out. I don't know.
I don't know what they're called. Anyway,
uh,
yeah, she's having a party.
yeah, she's having a good party, and then she also said some of the best fun in life equals sharing perspectives.
That's true.
Well, we're going to be sharing our perspectives here on the 30th episode of Double Feature Movie Club, where we will be talking about two crime movies: the dark neo noir, I don't know, mercenary vengeance, dark seedy New York underbelly movie starring Joaquin Phoenix titled "You Were Never Really Here," and Muppets Most Wanted. Those are our two films. So we're very, very excited about this pairing. I think it's a fun pairing, so we're going to talk about those. Before we jump into there, is there anything else you want to talk about before we jump in?
There's a series that's out on Amazon right now. I just started on Friday,
Hmm.
and I've talked to a couple of different friends of mine about this series, and I thought their perspectives were really interesting. The series itself is based upon books by Louise Penny. She's a Canadian writer, and she has a series of 18 books right now about a Canadian police detective named Armand Gamache. And
Okay.
it's centered around a village in Canada on the border with New Hampshire called Three Pines. And I've, of course, read all the books. I'm a huge fan of Louise Penny. And and I know other people who are as well. And the first two episodes were released on Friday, and it was interesting to listen to some other perspectives on it. I love the first two episodes, but I'm a huge fan of Louise Penny,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
it may be that uh, the this series is really going to be written for Louise Penny fans because you really need to understand these characters are really intense and they're really deep and after 18 books you can imagine, right?
Hmm.
And there's quite a cast of characters and the casting was wonderful. I thought they really did a good job with the casting on it. And talking to one of my other friends that have read most of Louise Penny's books, they were a little bit disappointed in it.
Oh. Hmm.
Yeah, they felt it moved a little too slow the first couple of episodes. Well, so I went back and I read some reviews, and the couple of reviews that I really trusted, like Variety, they said the same thing that the first couple of episodes was kind of slow, but then, as with most series, the third episode it starts to hit its stride. It's only got 8 episodes in it, and it's called Three Pines. And
Okay.
yeah, the most interesting thing to me are not the murders that these episodes will be centered around as much as the characters in this village of Three Pines. And I think in 8 episodes, you're going to get to see some in depth character building,
Okay.
and some
That's
great stories.
that's Alfred Molina, which is
Alfred
cool.
Molina's playing Armand, and I thought
Hmm.
he did a great job. But then, if you're not an Alfred Molina fan, may or may not, it's he's very. The character he's having to play is very um, deep kind of guy, and so having to portray that is not an easy thing to do. And
Hmm.
they use some tricks to do that might have on the surface been a little bit too easy,
Okay.
you know. But and yeah, so anyway, if you get a chance, I'm not going to tell you to read the books. I know that's a waste of time. But and if people like to listen to audiobooks, they change the reader in the middle of the after like I want to say the fifth book because the first reader died. And
Oh.
so the voice talent on the this for most of the books, a majority of the books are it was a guy from Downton Abbey. He
Oh.
played the Earl on Downton Abbey. He's not a real every episode actor, but he played the I think yeah it was an Earl that he played. Anyway, so
Huh.
yeah, just wanted to put that out there. Now the
Cool.
last season of The Crown has dropped, and I have not watched it. I keep telling Ava I'm going to watch it. I really am, but I haven't had a
Mm.
chance.
This would be a good season. I saw the trailer for it. Yeah, that's all really a good time period. I
Hmm.
guess a lot of people said they were waiting for this the whole time because I mean it's what people know. It's what people of now know. Yeah, so it's the with the what the when the castle burns and all that. I mean like all that's in that this season, right?
I
Whenever,
think so.
yeah.
I think so. The reason I brought up The Crown is the same producers for The Crown are producing Three Pines.
Oh, that's fascinating.
So anyway, yeah, and I want to watch it. I know Ava watched the very first episode and it was telling me a little bit about it. And then I saw some people from England that were kind of complaining that they took a little bit too much liberty with the truth. So
Mm.
anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
we'll
yeah.
see.
I've heard that.
You
Yeah.
know, it's a fictional take. Oh yeah, Ava
Y-
said the Castle Birds.
yes, Castle Burns. Yes, Castle Burns.
I thought you say it'd be around the right time for the castle burning. Wonder if they left their air fryer on. Be sure
yeah.
and unplug your air fryers at night, folks, because it
Mm,
will burn down your kitchen.
yeah. Well, that's good PSA. I'm glad we got that in here.
Me too. I don't even own an air fryer.
The and also I didn't announce this up top. At the end of the show, I have a very special announcement that is my next project. So be sure you want to stay tuned for that, won't you, Diane? Diane knows what it is. So do you think that
I
that's it's a
cannot wait for this.
okay?
Just knowing the road trip you went on and the
Mm-hmm.
amount of research you did for this, I cannot wait for this. It's going to be
Yes.
good.
It's Alex is involved and he's the co-producer again. So it's really it's exciting stuff that you'll have to hear the details at the end of the show.
Well, you know, and
But
anytime Alex is involved with something, it's either gonna laugh your head off because it's so funny, or it's gonna be such a train wreck that you're gonna laugh your head off. It's gonna be so funny. I love
yeah.
you, Alex.
Well, I think we're ready to get started here, don't you, Diane?
I do. I think Ollie is finding his most comfortable spot here, so
Hmm.
I
Well,
think he's
cool.
ready.
Okay. Once again, our movies that we're discussing is 2017's You Were Never Really Here and 2014's Muppets Most Wanted. But first, You Were Never Really Here. We'll do a little musical interlude, and then Diane will tell you the plot synopsis of that film.
As if I had a choice. Okay, so let's talk about this. You were never really here. Now that does not roll off the tongue at all. So obviously you would cast Joaquin Phoenix in it. Um, the movie itself is a Joaquin Phoenix plays a traumatized mercenary named Joe, who is hired by a politician to find and rescue his daughter, who has been kidnapped by human trafficking network, which Joe is instructed to destroy by any violent means, which really is right up his alley because I'm pretty sure Joe is psychotic. Um, the film was co-produced between the United Kingdom, France, and the United States. It won at the what is it best screenplay at the Cannes Film Festival. Phoenix won the award for best actor, so it's pretty traumatizing kind of film. Let's see, I think it came out in 2017, I believe, right, Cade? And in the course of the film, has flashbacks to his abused father, his brutal past in the military and the FBI, and is troubled by suicidal thoughts. So you have a really messed up guy here that you've asked to go in and rescue a young girl from human traffickers. And this is all set in New York, and I don't know, Cade, this one was pretty scary in and of itself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of Taxi Driver, right? It's essentially the
Mhm.
same. But he's not a
It
taxi
really is.
driver. He's a you know, ex well he's a hitman, I guess is what his job is but he's hired through he's hired through high level political official and does different jobs of that obviously grants him some sort of cover or immunity because of the sort of high
Yeah,
level
because he
clientele
does
that
the
he.
wet work for people.
Mm-hmm.
So but the film opens and he's in this hotel room and he's
Mm-hmm.
bagging up. All of a sudden, there's a necklace that says Sandy. He's got a bloody, hammer.
He
Now,
loves his
where does?
hammers.
Yeah, no kidding. So, what I couldn't tie in that opening scene with him rescuing this young girl. I mean, if that's what his job was,
Mm-hmm.
or if it was an assassin, or what? Where did that tie in? Did he just kill a person named Sandy, or what was what? How did that fit in?
I think it was just sort of saying the sort of level of what his, just setting the stage of what his jobs kind of could be like he's hired for pretty much anything, and like he obviously has some sort of immunity, like he's on some sort of, you know, payroll of something that allows him to get away with something. And I think that was sort of the idea of like was just setting up that yes, he's a hitman of some sort, and and people hire him to sort of tie up loose ends of different things or to whatever.
Yeah.
And he's particularly known for being particularly brutal, so that he gets hired on things that need to. They essentially want their people to suffer for what they've done for some sort of reason.
Yeah, this was a brutal movie. I mean,
Hmm.
yeah, a lot of. I didn't. I'd stopped counting how many people he killed
It, yes, and
or
I'm
maimed in some
yes.
way. Let me
I
rephrase.
must say that like whenever this was explained, like it's Joaquin Phoenix as a hitman walking, you know, around the city under belly of New York with a hammer, that
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know, I assumed it was going to be a lot more like I
Like
it's
Mandy,
yeah, well, not exactly Mandy, but like, I mean, darker, like you would see a lot more. I mean, you don't,
right?
it's left a lot to your imagination. Like
Mm-hmm.
the subject matter is incredibly dark and everything, and it's brooding and whatever, but you really don't, outside of a hand, like maybe like two things, do you really, most of it's wide shots or even aftermath. You just see sort of the aftermath of what he's done. And
Yeah,
because really the focus isn't the violence that happens. And I think that's this director. She's done other things too. That and she wrote this. Her whole thing is the aftermath of violence, and like she's almost seemingly fascinated by horrific violence and sort of what happens after. So the violence necessarily isn't the point, as you would have in other films, like a Taken. Also takes a lot from, of
right.
course, Taken, where they, you know, that is a lot more um, on-screen violence that happens, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have the impact that this has. You know, it doesn't, in the sense of like, even though they don't show a lot of the violence that happens, it is it seems a lot more brutal, and it kind of sticks with you. The violence sticks with you in a way that doesn't, even though you see it on screen a lot more of what
Yeah,
happened, how him kill a lot more people on screen in like a Taken movie versus this movie. That makes sense.
right. Yeah,
This movie, I was reading it. You know, they'll have like these descriptors on on like what the tone or whatever this movie is on Amazon, and this, like you said, Amazon original. They bought it. It says suspenseful, eerie, and bleak. That's their selling point.
suspenseful, eerie, and bleak. It does kind of fit all those.
Uh-huh. I
You
mean,
know,
I guess it's, they want to put it up there up front that what it is. I mean, it is a bleak film, but yeah, but I don't know if a lot of people's like, oh, I'm gonna watch a suspenseful, eerie, bleak film. That sounds like right up my alley.
but and I think all those flashbacks to, him, his, abusive father, and seeing the abuse that his father dished out on his mother, that kind of thing was all
Yes.
that was pretty bleak. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think it informed the person that he was
Yes.
and why he would take a job to rescue a girl from human traffickers because, that's, he's like, well, I was a kid that needed to be rescued.
Yeah.
from my own father. So yeah. And then, he's also a caregiver to his mother,
Yes.
which she's, older or much older, let me put it
Mm-hmm.
that way. So she's elderly and
Mm-hmm.
needs his help physically and mentally even.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, there's all these references to Psycho, so.
Yes. Yeah. It pulls from a lot of kind of things that you're right. There's a kind of a Psycho
Hmm.
thing. There's I
Hmm.
mean, like a lot of these things that you sort of know, um, and so it kind of makes this interesting sort of film. I think, um, well, first off, did you like this film? I mean, I don't know. I know it's hard to say, but is it? Did you? But did you? I guess I'll just ask it. Did you like the film?
Yeah, I thought it
Mm-hmm.
was. I thought there were components of it I really liked, and then there was. I think overall the story was good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for a while there was like, okay, where are we going with all of this? Because they
Mm-hmm.
were introducing these characters, and
Yes.
you don't introduce characters and then just throw them away, like the
Mm-hmm.
shop owner and the little boy. And then when it rolls back around to say, okay, this is what we're doing with these characters, that was unsettling. And I
Yes.
think it made it. I hate to use the word entertaining, but it made it interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because I like to see those loose ends kind of tied up, and they
Yes.
were.
Yes, and like in
Yeah.
in a way that is different than
Hmm.
what other films like. I mean, it's it's almost this movie is almost kind of the antithesis to like a Taken or something like where it's
Yeah.
like here's an action but we're trying to set up a franchise or something and whatever and it's what it's setting up is it's kind of the payoff of all that stuff as you would call it is heartbreaking and it's kind of
Hmm.
and where it's the first act of where it's setting you up is it you're like, oh, that's going to be the film is he's going to have to go and get this lady over the course
Hmm.
of this night. Like they're setting it like all up of like you have to be here at this time. And so in your
Hmm.
head you're already creating, okay, this movie is going to be over the course of one night. He's going to have to go through all
Hmm.
this thing to figure out where this girl is but then he like
Hmm.
immediately finds the girl
Right.
and saves her immediately and you're like, wait,
Yeah.
this is not kind of going the way I'm going and
Yeah.
immediately gets to the place that they had set up in the first act of where you assumed
Hmm.
the end of the movie was going to be, and then where it goes from there is very fascinating. And at that point, it becomes clear like where some of its noir
Hmm.
elements come from of the fact that there's a larger system at play and corruption, and so it's a film that deals with sort of the seedy corruption of these political officials and everything and different things,
Hmm.
which love that in films.
Oh
I
yeah, yeah. Especially when they use the police
yes, yeah.
in that way. Yeah, that was.
Hmm.
Yeah, these are. Yeah,
Speaking of
those
the
are.
police scene, I had a note. One of the few things that took me out of it is so the police barge into the room and everything after she's been saved. We're not going to. I don't want to spoil too much of this, but we'll get to I guess to
Hmm.
this part because it's the first act. In the first
Spoiler
act,
alert.
it's a slice, but we're not going to spoiler a lot of this because I
Okay.
do think it's kind of worth sort of experiencing this.
Yes, because because this is the interesting part of the film, right? Yeah.
Yes. And so this is the kickoff of it. And
Hmm.
but anyways, there's a tussle between this police officer and Joaquin Phoenix. And he's obvious the police officer's obviously a stunt man. He's a big burly stunt man.
Hmm.
And then we're supposed to believe that Joaquin Phoenix or any leading man or any leading person, this happens in films all the time, takes out this big stunt man. That was
With
one
a
of the few.
chokehold,
The chokehold on top of that, yeah.
when he literally looked like a 5-year-old in the back of Daddy's back. Yeah.
Yes.
It kind of takes you out a little bit. 'Cause yeah. At least the way they shot it, they were laying down. So it
Yes.
wasn't. But if they had been standing up, it literally would have looked like a 5-year-old
Yes.
on Dad's back,
Mhm.
holding on for dear life. That one is one of the places that it took me out was, when you and I hate it when they do this in movies when they take a car, obviously an automatic old lady car, and they
Mhm.
make it sound like a dragster.
Mm.
It's got shifting gears and all this stuff and, peeling tires and yada, yada, yada on wet pavement. None of that happens. So the sound
That's
guy
funny.
needs to, somebody needs to have a talk with him. Because he lost his mind on the sound part of it. And the director
Mhm.
should have came back and said, just stop that shit right now. Doesn't even make sense. The
Yeah.
other one was that when he was like, he could barely drive. He was
Mm-hmm.
so wiped out. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
he had been up for days at this point.
Yes.
He's popping pills to stay awake. And
Yes.
so he's really strung out at this point.
Mm-hmm.
He could barely drive this car, keep it between the lanes, yada, yada, yada.
Uh-huh.
Yet he was able to creep very quietly into a house, onto the second floor.
Second floor, yeah, on top of that,
And,
yeah.
and, surprise
Uh-huh.
attack, two obviously paid assassins.
Yes.
So, it's kind of like, okay, that didn't work for me.
I agree that one was a little bit, well, yeah, and he walks around. This is an old house, so it creaks.
Oh, yeah.
It would creak, yeah. I agree, but at the same time, they sort of they explain it away as being like he's done this before in this house whenever he had an abusive father. Like they kind of have these flashbacks where he had to be, But of course, he was a little kid at that point, and now he's a full-grown burly Joaquin Phoenix.
Who could barely drive a car not 10 seconds earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he was so strung out.
Mm-hmm.
That he can now be like a cat burglar.
Yeah. His performance is great. I mean, he's a great actor. I think that at this point, you kind of say he's he's just an excellent actor.
And this is right up his alley, too.
Mm-hmm.
Psychotic.
Yes, but it's
broken.
If you see, like, it's a similar story to like a Joker, but completely different angle at which he's sort of going about this sort of, whatever you want to call it with psychology words, but he's a killer, I guess, at the very least, factually that, like, it's a different performance, like, and they're both very much within his wheelhouse and completely different. One thing, physically very different. He's put on a lot of weight for this role and has, grown out beard and all that stuff. And then he's clean shaven and very, very lean in Joker. But they're just, from outside physically, they're very different characters, and they kind of go at their sort of thing very differently. He's excellent in this movie. It's a very interesting watch. So the director of this was Lynn Ramsey, and she did We Need to Talk About Kevin. I don't know if you ever saw that one. It's Tilda Swinton, and she plays the mom of a I don't know if sometimes you forget when information's released in the film, but I guess I'll say it. So she plays the mom of a school shooter, essentially. And the sort of what it like, and it's like why she's at first you don't really know why she's so hated in this town and everything, and everyone despises her, and she's like going through her life trying to sort of do that with and what's happened with her family, and like there's flashbacks, of course, with this kid that she raised. Ezra Miller plays her son, who's went off the deep end and killed people. That's who her son is.
Good. She wonders why people don't like her. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very, very fascinating, and so again, it's a film about violence and sort of the cycle of that, and why. Well, I mean, she knows why people don't like her, but the audience slowly sort of figures that, like, because they're like, well, geez, why, you're introduced to this lady who just seems like a normal person that people for some reason
and then
completely.
You find out later.
Yes, that's what sort of the movie is. So it's a little bit of a slight spoiler, but that people know that's what the film's about. What takes you out of the movie, and this is a spoiler for that movie. I love 99% of that movie. It would be higher on my list, but what he does is he's a school shooter with a bow and arrow. That's revealed at the end of the movie. Is he went around with a bow and arrow, and that's what happened. He locked the doors and he did that. And again, you don't see the you see the aftermath and the lead up to it. But like, it's so like bizarre. That's like, why didn't you just do the normal thing or whatever? Or normal, why did you go that route with? And it takes me completely out of the movie that was the sort of method in which it was done. Right. Hey, that otherwise a really good movie to ruin in the last act with some weird, like, I don't understand that, but really good movie. Tilda Swinton's really great in that, and that's what seemingly her style is sort of taking these really deep character studies and sort of looking at how violence is perpetrated and everything, and sort of these very bleak looks at humanity.
So, what did you think about the way they filmed the way that they filmed the takedown in the um, human trafficking house using security cameras?
I love that.
Yeah.
It was one of those standout things. Of in fact, I've said before, I wished more movies would kind of take that sort of security like I love that, and one of my film ideas in high school was kind of utilizing some of that a little bit more, and because I do really love it. It's almost kind of it's I don't know, it's almost voyeuristic in some sort of weird way, because you're watching it and it's unfolding, and you're almost like a person from a third person watching these characters from like above. It's almost like a godlike view of the world, and I wish more things did that. It was a little bizarre, the cuts, and they kind of do that later in the scene where it's not a security camera, but they do the sort of similar high angle shots of him entering an area, is what we'll say, and they should have done security camera for that too, I feel like, but for that just portion, because that would also probably have security cameras where that was at. But the cuts and the music it didn't follow him all the time. It would sometimes cut back and everything, and so that was a little bizarre. I do wish it just kind of would have followed him through that, but I wish we had more security camera shots and action set. Well, it's a way to hide the action too.
Right, that's true.
It's a way.
That's the one thing when you were talking about how a lot of the violence was off camera. I thought, well, yeah. When you think about it from the security camera perspective, you didn't really see the violence; you saw the aftermath of it.
Yes, I mean, and sometimes it's kind of obscured because of the angle of it. Like they come out, and then you just sort of see him swinging, and then of course it's not a real hammer from that far of a distance. Well, it never probably would be a real hammer, but like you have a lot more leeway. And so like truthfully, I can't imagine this film like it doesn't need a lot from that perspective of. I mean, there's really not a lot of, like they don't need to have, they had to have some blood, but they didn't have to have, close-ups of, they had to have prosthetic work or anything like that in this movie, which it saves a lot of time and money and everything, which I'm fine with. That's fine. Like, I mean, like this movie, it still sticks with you. I mean, because, it's such a kind of brutal thing of using a hammer, but you don't, it leaves a lot in the audience's head, which is fine. It's actually kind of better in a lot of ways.
Which is, I think, part of the reason why the movie does stick with you. It's because you do have to come up with this on your own.
Yeah.
And a good book is like that, too. It's, so much of it you have to come up with on your own. And the more that you make that muscle work, your brain work, the more that, you're going to stick with it.
Yeah, it's the
or
unknown
at least
horror.
Remember it.
Yep, the Jaws, you don't see really the shark, I bet a few things. I think of like, Seven. People say, oh, that's one of the most horrific movies, whatever. And it's like, and people say, whatever the different things of ones are. But a lot of that stuff, you just see the aftermath of it. And people think of it particularly of a brutal thing, but almost all of it is just described, and you just sort of see the crime scenes, or you see some devices that's used, and it sticks with you in a visceral way that wouldn't have if they would have just openly shown some sort of prosthetic, blood gory thing. Like it's just and it happening, or does like a Saw thing where it kind of it sticks with you a lot more, and because it's in your head, it's not in front of your eyes.
Yeah, because the way I described this was it was a brutal, movie, but it wasn't nearly as brutal as Mandy.
No, yeah,
Mandy was in your face on the screen,
chainsaws being wielded.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
stabbing through people. Yeah,
when I turned off my TV, I was pretty sure there was still going to be blood on it.
Yeah, but at the same time, I can't come up with specific thing. I remember the giant chainsaw fight, but specifically how people were killed, it's all murky. Yeah. But I know there were some impalings of some sort with things, but I don't. But
I don't even remember the reason why he was killing all those people. I know it had to do with his
Mandy,
wife and Mandy herself, but
yeah,
was she dead too? I'm not sure.
Well, she was burned. Like so that was visceral, and because like that one was somewhat off because she's in a bat. We're not going to relitigate Mandy, but yeah, but that one was
still
intentionally.
A gross movie.
Yeah, all what happens afterwards and how they all die. Like who the main bad guy? I don't even remember how he dies.
Yeah, I don't either. Mm-hmm. I don't either. I try not to think about that movie, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love the last note I have on here is it has a lot more, what we're talking about seems like a lot of high impact or a lot of things. This movie is silent for extended periods. It's a thoughtful kind of and it has a lot of silence and a lot of no dialogue. Just sort of people like it's very long bouts of that, and so there's that punctuated by a lot of music
with words.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. People singing.
Was it singing? Yes.
Yeah. People.
The best part was where he and the guy who was dying were singing the song together.
Yes.
I was like, oh, I didn't realize it was supposed to be a comedy. They're singing a song together. Wow.
It's supposed. I wouldn't say it's a comedy. Yeah. I mean, it was. No. It was. It
wasn't even a comedic moment.
Yes. It's a shared humanity. Yeah. Because I think that music the use of music's very fascinating because it's like really everyone loves music or whatever, and then it kind of it's the music that's used in this is bizarre. It's like 1940s kind of ragtime.
Yeah. You are my sunshine. Kind of and one of the awards that it was for the music. One of the British awards that it won was for the music in it.
So it has a score that's interesting.
Really bizarre. It was really different.
Yes. And it's all of it. So they have a score, of course, that comes in at a few different points. And I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's a more traditional musical score. So it doesn't take you out of it, but it's not, there's no synth in this movie is what I'm saying. Right. But then there's this diegetic music, what they call music that happens in the scenes that is throughout this film. Just radios playing, people singing different songs that they hear, and that it's almost always just like TVs or radio that's just around that's making these sort of, and that's they're playing like these 40s music. This is really old music, and then also a lot of TVs, a lot of like just ambient noise of just people like ads. I wouldn't say necessarily ads, but there was some of that, and then some like newscasting. But it's like I'm just talking, like you hear like in the final scene. We're not going to talk about what, but there's just you hear other people's conversations and stuff. That's supposed to contrast what's happening on the screen of like essentially, I think we did that a bit with Ribbon, and it's one of my most fascinating sort of things that you can do with media in general is almost like that goes on and doesn't really care about what's happening in your life. I think there's aspects of that, and other people are on their own sort of world that they're oblivious in that they're not even aware that what other people's lives are happening. And I think that the music being such kind of happy old time nostalgia, was also in direct, comparison to what is the brutality of modern society was a good sort of combination there.
Yeah.
And that it added some sort of like that music comforted these people in very dark situations, and it comforted our main character. He sang a lot of these songs. What's that song? Yeah, that he sang throughout it, where it was some alphabet sort of song thing.
I didn't recognize it, but it was
yeah. And so it's
an old song.
It's an old song, yeah.
Just try to look it up here real quick, but I'm way off that.
It's called. Oh, I don't remember what it was called. It's called like A is for. No, E is. I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, it didn't have it listed here. I was hoping that it would.
But the the parents saying or the mother saying it, it there was a lot of use of that song and a lot of things. I don't know. I'm not gonna. I guess it's not hugely important, but it it is saying quite a bit. The and there's just a lot of different music in general. Any other notes that you noticed or anything that you wanted to bring up here?
Well, the first and second act, there was a lot of build up in this, to establish the issues that he had, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not a lot of build up on the infrastructure in which he worked, right?
Yes, yeah, I agree with that.
So that left a lot to the imagination as far as, how did he get his jobs? Usually when you're talking about assassins or people who do wet work like this, there's always that whole buildup around, how they get their jobs, how they make their money, you know, um, et cetera, et cetera. And none of that was all left kind of to the imagination. You meet a couple of
Yes,
people that are involved, but you really don't see how he got a lot of, his jobs and stuff like that.
yes,
And the one person and the people that it does kind of bring in on that really barely,
mm-hmm.
um, you know, really uh, get their own in the third act. When the
Yes,
third act starts, this thing picks up
yes.
and you're shocked. I mean, it's shocking
I think
in a
the end of the
sense.
first act, where like there's a hint at some sort of larger conspiracy of afoot, that was very interesting, and like
Right.
and you don't really get a lot of that till sort of late, and then you sort of second act is sort of the dissolution of what was set up beforehand. Like all the setup is like slowly chipped away, and then you sort of put in a confrontation sort of place in the third act. So all I'll get into. That's the most I'll say about it. But the I there they could have went into I do think they keep a lot of that um under wraps of what I think intentionally about what his job is, because I think what they're suggesting is some sort of deeper conspiracy. What they're suggesting of
Right.
some sort of and like of going into that a little bit too much would get into sort of
Mhm.
conspiratorial sort of standpoint. And the fact, I mean, like he was obviously some sort of military operative
Right.
that has some sort of ties to and high level people know of him for that sort of way. And he's saying that I don't know. I do think they could have had an opening scene that was a little bit more straightforward and would have kind of put you into it a little bit better than what they did. I think
Yeah.
I think there was a way to sort of tell that story and everything. I do think that the flashbacks could have been a little bit more. Um, they're very short. There's very few of them. I mean, like we say that they sort of say these things, and it's like they do, but they kind of are very even vague there too. I think you very much get the fact that he's his who come from an abusive father. You don't really see him. It's all shot in sort of way. You get that apparently of what that is. You get apparently his weird suffocation thing. You get, but I don't think they really, like, outside of a few lines and a few things, really hammer home the fact that of what his military experience is, and that could have been an interesting sort of underlying thing. I don't know.
The name of the song is A, You're Adorable.
Okay, perfect. Hey, that's right. That is right.
A, You're Adorable. There was I was just looking this up. I wanted to make sure I had the right name for this. I watched a movie, gosh, this has been years ago, and it had, a girl from Will Hunting. Oh, where is it? I wanted to make sure I got the right one. Oh, here it is. It's called Take. That's the name of it. And it has Minnie Driver in it. And it's
Okay.
about capital punishment. And she plays a woman whose son was kidnapped during a hostage situation and dies.
Hmm.
And her forgiving the guy who killed him, right? And the guy didn't actually mean to kill him, but he does. and
Huh.
through a series of events. Anyway, the name of the movie is called Take, and it was done in 2007. If you ever get a chance, watch it, because I would be interested to see what you think of how this director deployed his flashbacks. Because what he does is he's telling the story from the perspective of the guy is on death row, and Minnie Driver is going to her meeting with him. They have this survivors, forgiveness meeting, whatever, right? And she's driving to do that, and both of them are flashing back to the action that occurred and what led up to it. And in the flashbacks, the director uses a completely different color palette
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
for both of them. So all the time in that movie where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, and it's so subtle, and you don't really realize it at first, and then it kind of hits you. Oh yeah, okay, so we're in this time frame,
Mm-hmm.
for this character, and he uses color to do it mainly. And I thought
Yeah.
it was the most interesting take I had ever seen on doing flashbacks like that. And it stuck with me. This is 2007. It
Mm-hmm.
stuck with me that long.
Well, that's
If you ever
cool.
get
Yeah.
a chance, watch it. I think it's a movie that I think you would enjoy.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely will. One of my favorite uses of the color, they'll do that a lot. Did you ever watch Homecoming on Amazon? It's another Amazon show. It was with Julia Roberts. It was her TV show that she did, and it was, and they did a lot of flashbacks. And what they did is they changed the aspect ratio, and it was sort of the first one that I had seen that did a 1-to-1, similar to kind of how Ribbon was, where it would snap into a 1-to-1, which was cool.
I don't think I saw that.
It's a good show, and they made a second season with I never saw it, but it was I don't remember who it was, but it was a completely different story somehow within the same universe or something. I don't honestly even know what the second season was, but I knew that they made one.
Okay, yeah, I just found it. They did, but you're right. It's a completely different cast and everything. Okay.
Anyways,
So-
yeah. So, is there any other notes that you have about? I did find it. It is a little odd. Like it's one of those things of like, Taxi Driver's very similar way of like, I don't know. It's
a Joaquin Phoenix movie. What do you expect? It's odd.
It's odd, and it's like
All his movies
it's
are
still
odd.
it's still gross to sort of see this stuff depicted on screen of what it's depicted, and it's I know at the point is it's supposed to make you uncomfortable and everything, and like you want her, of course, safe from this situation and everything, but it's just like I don't know, should we just not make movies about this, because it makes me feel incredibly uncomfortable that this is a subject matter in a film, and you have a young actress that's being forced to sort of go through these horrific situations. And the point is to make you feel uncomfortable, but boy, does it really do that. And I guess that's effective.
Even
in
on that
sense.
part, I think they left a lot to the imagination on that. In reality,
yes,
I mean,
yes,
yeah, I've seen much worse.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and this year
Taxi
we have
Driver.
seen worse.
You're right. Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, and she did a really good job too. We didn't talk about her performance. Her performance was really great
Yeah.
too. And not really a lot of other people. Like I think they could have. She was after we need to talk about Kevin. She was a well-known director, and obviously Joaquin Phoenix is in it. They could have populated those other characters with more named actors, but they decided, of course, not to I think make them seem like more real people.
Yeah.
Like that and they could have made his mom some older actress that everyone knows. They could have made his former his boss someone, and that was like one scene he was in, so that could have been somebody. That could have been Albert Brooks's character from Drive.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just saying that they could have.
The politician could have been one of the
politician
guys
definitely.
that they always use that are slimy.
Yes, Dermot McRoney
But
or
then you
Dylan
would know.
McDermott.
Yeah, exactly. Bobby Cannavale.
Yeah, yes.
But then you would know. See, it would give it away. I think the fact that they used character actors.
Mm-hmm.
Gave them,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, some gave them the ability to be more characters than to
Yes.
be
Just stunt casting. Yes.
stars. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I,
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I agree. I think I'm saying like it could have been done, and it would have made a different feel for the film. Like this
Yeah.
made it seem like it was populated by real characters, and they weren't played flashy. They were just played completely straightforward, which I think worked very well. Yeah, and I where the ending went. Well, not getting into it, but I think it went in a different way than I expected it to go. Of like where they're setting up what the finale is. Of course, it goes a different sort of way, which is again saying that the violence isn't the point of this film. It's a revenge or movie, if we want to call it revenge or whatever. It's some sort of it's a violent film about sort of the aftermath of violence and sort of that the violence isn't the point. It's how it impacts the people around them. So, anyways, Diane, would you recommend this movie, and what would you rate it?
Okay, I would recommend this movie to anybody but Ava.
Yes.
Ava, no, don't watch this movie. Okay,
Yeah.
this is not for you, but for anybody else, I think that it has an interesting twist and plot, twist in it. It has, Joaquin Phoenix is definitely, is a watchable actor, in a lot of ways, even with the beard. And he does a good anti-hero, I guess, in that sense. He's totally got his issues, and he's certainly not Liam Neeson in the Taken series.
He's not supposed to be. Yeah, he's not a hero.
He's not a hero. But at the same time, he steps up to
yes,
to be one, even though he's really not. It's not in him to be that way. Anyway, yes, I would recommend it. I was looking for cans of soda. That's what I was doing. I was looking. Are there any cans of soda? Because that's the only drink that I saw.
There's a cup with a straw.
Oh gosh.
You want
three of those, I guess.
You could do pills. I'll give you a pills emoji. You want?
Oh, you will? Yeah. Yeah, give me some pills, dude.
You've now, by the end of the season, you have upgraded to you can have pills now.
Oh my gosh!
That's my
movies. Then,
that is my that is my Christmas gift to you, Diane. Pills.
I'm so excited. Yes, let me have 3 pills.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see here. I'm trying to figure out how I'm supposed to do this. Oh, okay. Wait a second. 3 pills. And you'd recommend this movie to everybody but Ava.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Wait a second.
Thanks for the warning. I am well aware of mainstream management, the alpha aftermath of violence. She is. But, there's no reason to subject yourself to it when it's totally unnecessary.
Yes. It, and it, it's, there's your 3 pills. There you are. I'll put it in the corner there.
Thank you.
A little, almost like Tic Tacs. You could say they're Tic Tacs. Anyone
Should say they're Tic Tacs.
I would recommend this movie. I really did like this movie a lot, and I think it's a movie that benefits from sort of seeing it with fresh eyes. That's why we have very arbitrary rules as to what we spoil and what we don't.
No, we don't.
We don't.
We really do.
We do.
But this one is really one that you don't want to spoil.
Yeah.
You really don't, because it's important, I think.
And I think this is one that I, even after talking about, I think I like more even talking about it afterwards than like even during it. I think that it has actually a lot of sort of meat to the bone and everything. And yes, I would highly recommend this movie, with of course the caveat that it just know it going in. I'm giving it a hammer, by the way, because I had to.
I knew you would take the hammer.
It's a different hammer that he has but the I would.
Well, there's no blood on it.
Yeah, that's the difference. Did you see in the final thing how he didn't have blood on his hammer? Like when he was walking up to I'm not without getting anything. I was like, I don't know if that was a continuity thing or if it was an implication that something else happened or whatever. But
I don't know, or if he bought a new one.
Yeah,
he bought a new hammer,
or he washed it off before he went.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I really, really did like this movie a lot. And I thought there were sort of things. I think people said, "Oh, it never lets up, and it's not boring." I'm like, there's dry points in it. I don't think that like that's a fair thing to say. Of like it grabs a hold, and people said it grabs a hold and doesn't let go, and it's like it's
you could let go.
Yeah, and it's more thoughtful than I think even we've sort of said it here. It has bouts of reflection, and it's a lot more. It has these sort of scenes, but it's a lot more meditative than I think you would sort of imagine a film that we've described it in, like even with its plot synopsis is. Yeah, it has a lot of bouts of silence and reflection and things like that. So there is downbeats in this movie. It's not like grab a hold of you, never let go. It's a pretty good thing. That's You Were Never Really Here. I still don't really understand that title of the film.
It was based on the movie is based on a novella.
Yeah.
Get it out. A short story. That had been written in 2013. So I guess they couldn't come up with anything better.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a few lines that I'm like, oh, that could have been a better thing, but I've completely forgot about them. Completely forgot. To me, it's almost.
Hey, you're adorable.
Yeah, they could have called it "You're Adorable." Yeah, hey, you're adorable. So yeah, I don't know. That's what I think that there could have been something that you would have called. To me, it's almost an implication of like this sort of conspiracy sort of aspect to the beginning part of like what he goes into these situations, and that's why I understood initially. But then it's kind of, I don't know. Who knows really what it means? But maybe that's to talk about. But that's perhaps some spoilers there. Yeah. So we both recommend it with caveats. It's I like I said, I think it was ended up being a lot more thoughtful than I initially thought it was going to be about that sort of thing. That was just going to be kind of a bloodfest, but it was not. So good. Our next film's not a bloodfest, but it's also a crime film in a lot of ways. It's Muppets Most Wanted, from our lighter fare to end the cap off the season with. We'll go out to our intermission time, grab some popcorn from the concession stand, and then I'll be back with the plot synopsis of Muppets Most Wanted.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's intermission time. All these delicious treats are waiting for you at the refreshment stand. Delicious fresh popcorn, ice-cold cola, and candy you know and love. They're all ready for you now, so you won't have to miss any of the feature. Come and get them.
And now, on with the show.
You're on mute.
Thanks, Diane. I appreciate that.
Only because we had this happen earlier today.
Yes, I mute myself on these because I don't typically do the plot synopsis. So I appreciate that, Diane. Anyways, hi, I'm Cade, and here's my plot synopsis for the 2014 film Muppets Most Wanted. Hope you watched the 2011 soft reboot film of The Muppets because the first 7 minutes of the film will be completely meaningless. Sorry, Diane. In that film, actor Jason Segel co-wrote and starred in that. In this one, he and co-star Amy Adams couldn't be bothered to return for a cameo, so stand-ins had to appear as their characters from behind. But hey, that's showbiz. Immediately following a meta-musical number about the Muppets doing a sequel, they drop all pretenses and plot threads from the previous movie and do a whole new film. Something I was relieved by after telling Diane that she didn't need to see any Muppet movies to understand this one. So good. I was very happy, Diane, about that. That I wasn't a liar. Just took 7 minutes to get into that. The plot of Muppets Most Wanted is a very simple one. On the wind of their newfound popularity from their previous film, Kermit hires a nice-seeming talent manager, played by Ricky Gervais, named Dominic Bad Guy. He books the Muppets on a world tour, which is really just a European tour, which is what the film probably should have been called, Muppets World Tour. I think would have been much easier to sell. But anyways, that's beside the point. As he uses the Muppets' loud shows as cover for art heists involving a complicated treasure hunt that will eventually gain him and his heist partner access to steal the crown jewels. Also, his heist partner is an evil-looking Kermit with a black mole named Constantine. The evil frog manages to escape from a Russian gulag, put a mole in Kermit, and lock him away in a Russian prison. This is all the plot of the film. In the gulag, Kermit befriends Russian prison guard Tina Fey and prisoners Jermaine Clement, Ray Liotta, and Danny Trejo. He is tasked with training the prisoners and putting on the prison's annual review pageant. Other plot points include Ty Burrell doing his best Jacques Cousteau impression as a French Interpol agent and being partnered with Sam the Eagle, who, in Muppets fashion, inexplicably doesn't recognize the Muppets and plays a CIA agent who also won the case for some reason. Also, Miss Piggy wants to marry Kermit. Also, Gonzo wants to perform a dangerous stunt. Also, Animal throws tantrums throughout. Also, the Swedish Chef steals every scene that he's in. Also, they really don't know what to do with their new Walter character. Also, Fozzie, the funniest character in most Muppet movies, and including this one, really doesn't have too much to do outside of being Kermit's friend and wanting to save him in the third act. Also, Christoph Waltz is in this. Also, Selma Hayek gets trampled by bulls. Also, Saoirse Ronan does a ballerina routine. Also, Usher plays an usher. Also, Lady Gaga, Tony Bennett, James McAvoy, Stanley Tucci, P. Diddy, Zach Galifianakis, Tom Hiddleston, Frank Langella, Josh Groban, and Celine Dion also all appear. There's 17 song and dance numbers, then only a Muppet movie can make me love excessive musical numbers and celebrity cameos. I love the Muppets, love this film. It's held together by duct tape and a dream, and there's nothing more Muppets than that. That's Muppets Most Wanted. I had fun with that one, Diane.
I don't think there's anything else to say. I'm glad I got to watch a Muppet movie. I would have never watched a Muppet movie. Except it was on this list, and I had to watch it. So I'm glad I got to watch it. But I think you summarized it and really said everything there was to say about it.
There's really not too much
the only thing I would say would be the actors who are in this, whether it's a brief cameo or they actually have several lines. Mm-hmm. You could tell they were having a shitload of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, they were. You could tell.
Yeah.
You know, the guy from Modern Family, whatever.
Yeah, Ty Burrell.
Yeah. Oh my God.
He obviously
such a great time.
He obviously just loved Peter Sellers and Pink Panther. That's what he was. Yeah.
It was a dream of his to play it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Tina Fey. I mean, you could tell everybody that was in this, even if it was just for a nanosecond, really, really had a good time.
Yes.
The guy with the really long name that does, behind the ferns, whatever.
Oh, is that Galifianakis? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he was just an audience member, 2 or 3 seconds on film. And you could tell he had so much fun.
So he had an extended part in the previous movie. He played like a hobo that goes through all this. Yeah. So that's, technically speaking, in the credits, he's called Hobo Joe, I think is what that character's name is. As a callback. It's really one of the only callbacks outside of, so Walter is, he plays one, he's the yellow Muppet that has like the brown hair or whatever, and he's kind of throughout it a bit. He's the one of the 3 that goes to save Kermit at the end. He was first introduced in the 2011 movie. That was the first one he was in, and he was kind of a main character, and he's since parted the Muppets, but there's really nothing for him to do. He doesn't really have a character. He was a fan of the Muppets who wanted to join the gang, and he sticks out like a sore thumb in my opinion in all the Muppets things that's afterwards, of like they really don't know what to do with that character, because for Muppets fans, he's a little too similar to Robin. B, he's a little too similar to Scooter. There's too many characters that sort of played that role that it doesn't really work. But oh well, I can't get rid of him.
I can no more tell you who any of these people were. So,
I do have a joke about Robin in the thing.
Yeah, you were just introduced. We can't get rid of you now.
Yeah, or yeah, and that it was at the expense of other characters, and so and that they have a joke about like because Rizzo says that, and he's barely. There's 100 Muppets characters, and having to juggle all of these characters to have interesting things is the hassle. I do think that there are things that don't necessarily work too well that I would have enjoyed amping up the side characters of the Muppets a little bit more, and kind of lessening some of that. Mainly, Ricky Gervais is good in this movie, but him and his dynamic with the evil Kermit doesn't work as well as the dynamic with the Muppet. And that's a lot of times is spent on their sort of thing once they're together, that it's just like, that's less interesting. The previous movie, the bad guy was Chris Cooper, who plays an oil tycoon, and he's chews scenery like no end on the previous one, and he was like one of the actual standouts, and he had like a Muppet minion, and so there's precedent for evil bad guys, and this doesn't really, I don't know, it doesn't work all that well. And Tina Fey eventually gets there with her character, but also I think the gulag scenes, some of it, when it works really well, but then there's times when it doesn't really work. Ray Liotta doesn't get a lot to do in this movie, but he's always 110% on board with it. He's kind of the third fiddle.
You could tell. Yeah, everybody. All those guys who are in the gulag, sung and dance team, whatever they were having a great time. Danny, whatever his name.
Danny Trejo, which he plays Danny Trejo. He plays himself.
Love that. Yeah. So like I said, you could tell all the real people were having a great time.
Yeah.
That's all I could say about, because I don't know. My first Muppet movie. Thank you, Cade.
No problem.
I got the dishes done. So it was good.
It's good. It's a fun thing. It's like I don't have a lot of notes about it. I have literally 2 notes that I wrote down outside the paragraphs that I wrote there. But outside of that, I have I love Fozzie. It's so bizarre because I wasn't the hugest fan of him whenever I was a kid, but more and more he's become my favorite character, of just because he's like his whole joke, and they don't really do it in this, is that he's a comedian, and he's just not a good comedian. He's incredibly awful, and he's Kermit's best friend. Those are the 2 sort of things that he has. And he has a heart of gold, and Kermit sometimes accidentally breaks his heart and everything, because Kermit can be a little bit he's a perfectionist, and he trying to hold this whole thing together, and people think of him as like a fuddy-duddy, but he's really just trying to be the person who he's trying to be the controlling of this chaos that they have all the time. So sometimes he hurts people's feelings, and Fozzie is oftentimes the bearer of that and everything. And so their dynamic's really good. But this movie, they didn't really develop that as much as like Fozzie's the third Muppet, and they didn't really do it that good of a job with that. But at the same time, I laugh more at Fozzie's lines because he does these often meta things that's like. I think like the bad guy, Dominic Bad Guy, there's some joke there that's really funny with Fozzie, and there's a few of them that he does these one-off asides that are really, really funny. I love it. There's a smile on my face the entire time with Muppets. I think that they do a really good job with that. I don't know. There's really not much to be said. Miss Piggy could use a little bit more, but then the Celine Dion bit really works and it has a good payoff. I don't know. Is there anything else? What did you like as the first time Muppet watcher? Was there anything about the Muppets in particular that stood out to you?
I like the wedding scene.
Mm-hmm.
Where they have it in this, beautiful cathedral. Where was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
in London. Yeah, Tower of London.
And of course, they break one of the stained glass windows, and the priest says, "Yeah, that was 800 years old."
Yeah, Franklin Chilla.
I like that whole, how they did that whole thing. How the setup was, the way that they had the Muppets all in the audience, and then they had real people, and it was a good. I guess that was the end of the movie, wasn't it?
Yeah,
around in the end of the movie.
Yeah.
It was a good ending in that sense.
Yeah, and I like that they do this whimsical, like, sort of they all that stuff, and I like how they weave in like this one they used these Muppet baby, like creepy baby thing, that they were part of the original Muppet Show, but they really only have a few plays here.
They
and
look
there.
like the Cabbage Patch Kids.
Yes,
My mom. I have 2 of those that my mom owned, and
yes,
they're really scary looking.
yes, that's exactly kind of what they're doing. And they were in they're in a few things bits with the Muppet Show, and then they kind of appear in the background, different things. Like one of my favorite things about the Muppets is whenever they can bring in these sort of forgotten Muppets, because they're all part of, the Jim Henson Creature Shop. And so they're able to sort of dig into the sort of the back catalog of like really like obscure things and bring them back into this in interesting ways. And that was just one of like, we have these things that we really haven't done bits with since the 70s. Why don't we just bring them in here? And it's, that's great. And that's that little things like that are fun. And
I like the gulag scenes when they're going to do the review, the Broadway review.
Yeah.
With these guys. I mean, they even had Ray Liotta dancing.
Yes.
I mean, I was impressed.
And Ray Liotta, like, I think they should have done more with it. Like, he was 100%, like, because he doesn't get to do comedy all that much. No. And so he's like, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to go for 110%, And
it was good to see him on screen because, he's gone. He's not with us anymore. So
that's true.
It was nice to see him in something lighthearted.
Yes. And he just goes and swings for the fences. Yeah, I mean, like that. Yeah, I agree. He was and that was honestly the only 2 notes I had was love Fozzie, and Ray Liotta is great. And Ray Liotta, like he stuck out as like one of like. And I wish they would give him a little bit more. Apparently, there's there's a 2-hour and 15-minute version of this movie that's extended, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, if they would have expanded the show and like some people get the sort of short end of it in this movie. I think Gonzo doesn't get a whole lot to do. Gonzo was sort of the lead in Muppets from Space, which is one of my favorite ones, which is not a lot of people's favorite. I love Great Muppet Caper and Muppets from Space are my 2 favorite Muppet movies, and I'll stick by it.
I'm so glad for you, Cade. We didn't have Muppets when I was a kid, so I'm glad that you did.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they weren't in style when I was a kid, to be fair. I was a weirdo for liking the Muppets because they were not in style when I was a kid. They were in their sort of waning years of like Disney buys them and they're like, we don't really know what to do with this because they're kind of make fun of the entertainment industry, and their whole point is like satire. That's like the sort of point of what they do is they're sort of taking the wind out of a lot of the showbiz stuff, but still with like a heart and whatever. But that's there. And it's like a ragtag group or whatever. And but yeah, I love them. I always have loved them, and this is the only feature film that I haven't seen of them. They were celebrating this Christmas their 30th anniversary of the Muppets Christmas Carol, which is one of the most well-known of them. It's where Michael Caine plays Scrooge, and he's considered one of the definitive portrayals of Scrooge, and it's in this Muppet movie. So,
well, and I've never seen it, so maybe I'll watch it now.
You should watch it. It's just Christmas Carol. It's just Christmas Carol with songs and Muppets. So.
Okay, so can I have the ring? Please let me have the ring.
What? Sure. What do you want? The ring? Is that what you said?
The ring.
Oh, the ring emoji? Oh, for like wedding? Is that what you're trying to say? Okay.
Right. Because it was the ring. The bomb was in the ring.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I just gave it away.
It's fine. Okay, so you want to get how many would you recommend this movie, and what would you give it?
Mm-hmm. I think anyone who's a Muppet fan should watch this movie.
Okay. Did you like it? Did you not like it as not a Muppet fan?
Well, I watched it.
Okay. Well, okay. Yeah. What are you going to give it, Diane? You're going to give it what?
I'm going to give it 3 rings.
Okay. 3 rings. Same as you gave it the other with 3 pills. So, yeah, no, well, okay. Yeah, I would highly recommend this movie. I'd highly recommend just if you haven't jumped into the Muppets, jump into them.
should watch it. I think she would enjoy it.
If you love the Muppets, you'll love this. I think it's better than I had heard it was and everything. And so I always knew that it was like I kind of like it when they do genre things and do different things. I like it when they play themselves, and I think that's always fun. And like it's they do like these weird layers on layers. That's like continuity for the Muppets. They just kind of throw it out the window and do different things because like they're playing themselves in the first movie, but then now they begin this movie being like that was all a movie, and so it's layers upon layers of where actually the Muppets are within their films versus where they're at in real life. It's very Ava said, I do like the Muppets. I can't believe I didn't watch it. Too much Christmas decorating. We'll get to it. Yes, I love the Muppets a lot. And I'll tell you what's so, because I have a platform now, Diane, so I'm going to get into it here. If people ask me what I would do with the Muppets, if given him, the sad thing about it is that my pitch has been done, and it was a horrible flop, and people hated it, and I loved it, and I was like, I wouldn't change a single thing about it. I think it's a perfect thing, and people did not like it, and they rebooted the Muppets, and they made it an ABC primetime show, in which it was essentially kind of The Office meets 30 Rock, which 30 Rock borrowed, of course, a lot from the Muppet Show, it's a mockumentary about them putting together a late night show where Miss Piggy's the star of it. And it was just called The Muppets, and you can watch it on Disney Plus. It was essentially like, it was a more grounded, but still the Muppets. So it's Larry Sanders' show. It was Larry Sanders' show meets 30 Rock meets The Office with the Muppets. And that would have been my pitch too, a mockumentary and all that. But it's more grounded. It's a little bit more adult, I think you would say, because they're going through Miss Piggy and Kermit's broke up, which again, that's what you should do. It creates dramatic tension and everything, and you can explore these characters, and they have some episodes are Gonzo episodes, some episodes are Fozzie Kermit, some things are different things, and you can explore that. And there's A plots and B plots. I think it's a perfect show, and people hated it. And
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's a sad thing, and it got canceled and only lasted one season, and it was like retooled in its second half, and it just I really 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 did love that show, and people said it was a little too mean spirited for the Muppets, and I disagree with that. And I think the Muppets have a little bit of cynicism to them, and that's kind of somewhat the point and everything, but would recommend people watching that show. It was really, really a really great show, and I thought it really captured the Muppets. Some people say the voice of Kermit's a little weird. Again, aside what they did to Steve with the voice and everything, which I don't think was good. I don't necessarily mind the new Kermit show. Ava said, "Can I stream it somewhere?" Yes, it's on Disney Plus. It's just called The Muppets. It's a great, a really, really, really funny show. I really really like it.
I think all the Muppet movies were out there on Disney Plus.
On Disney Plus, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the show you're talking about. Yeah. It's called The Muppets, and it's on Disney
And I'll have
Plus.
to go back and watch the Christmas one. I've not seen it.
Yes, that one.
I
I would recommend that. Michael Caine is excellent in that as Scrooge.
Caine.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought you said Keaton.
No, Michael Caine. Yeah,
The
Michael
best.
Caine. I'm Scrooge.
The best Batman ever. Oh, well.
Batman.
Yeah.
He had a diamond the size of a tangerine. One of my favorite things. There's a great little comedy thing about that. Anyways, I'd give it a frog and a pig.
Oh yeah, I like it.
Great. Well, I guess we'll go into preview time, even though we got nothing to preview, but we will talk about my big project. That's what we'll preview. And we'll preview, we'll tell you again that we're returning in February, but after the break.
And now, preview time. When it comes to entertainment, you can't beat a good film. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
So let's take it what's coming your way. When it comes to entertainment, you just can't beat a good film, can you, Diane?
You just can't.
You just can't.
You just can't.
I don't know where I've heard that, but somewhere it came to me. Well, like I said, this is the end of the second season of Double Feature Movie Club. The end of the year, we will not return until February. At which point in February it'll be a Sunday in February. We'll announce that later. But this is the end of the second season, so there's not an announcement for what next week's films are because we won't be here next week, will we, Diane?
No, we won't.
We will. So you can go back and rewatch any of the ones that you've missed. If you've joined us later in the show, if you discovered us later, you definitely go back and watch some of our first season and watch some here, ones that you've missed on the second season. Maybe you've watched a movie and want to see other movies that we've talked about. Definitely, we've talked about a lot of various films, so definitely go back in the catalog. And if you have any films that you'd like us recommended to us, we typically are trying to stay within the last 10 years. Right now, we will in future seasons go past that, but there's still a lot of films that are made that
films that we have not seen.
Mm-hmm. So next season, I guess we'll say here that there'll still be films within the 2010s, is where we'll still be at. There'll be comedies, romantic comedies. There'll be horrors, a lot of horror. There'll be everything in between. Well, I don't know. Like I think we have some historical dramas and biopics and we like family dramas. There's a lot of different. We talk about a lot of different things on here.
We'll watch anything basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, and talk about it.
We'll talk. Yeah.
Even a Muppet movie.
Even a Muppet movie, yeah. We try to open weird and close weird and whatever and do different things. So yeah, we
certainly did this time.
Not much you could say about the Muppet movie. It existed. It was funny and it was whatever. So it's that. I like it. I have a lot more leeway though for my Muppet films than I do other comedies and stuff. But I still think it's funnier than a lot of other comedies. But that's just me. Maybe just because I love those characters so much. So that's that. I guess I will announce now the big project that I'm working on. Are you ready, Diane?
I'm so ready.
Okay, great. So every year, January 1st, I put out a project, or at least the past 2 years I have. In 2021, January 1st, I put out Ribbon. It was my feature film debut. I put it, we ran a festival circuit, then it got put out on YouTube. Again, if you haven't watched Ribbon, you should watch it. It's on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Cade Thomas. If you're watching the live stream, it's right here on the channel. And then in 2022, I put out Omaha, which was my 10-minute play. It was a filmed play, and that I recorded earlier. You can watch that, of course, still too. It's really funny. And every year we do a live stream afterwards with people involved or just people that wanted to join and talk and everything. Diane, you can join us for this year if you really want to in January 1st. I'll extend the invitation to you.
Should have been first. Should have been asked first, but that's okay.
But this January 1st, I will announce that this next project is a documentary, which of course I've done other documentaries, Laura, Tulsa Underground, different things like that, rise of esports.
And Laura won a prestigious, Atlanta
film or true crime. There was
the crime
film festival. Yes, it was the first in the nation.
Award.
And it won.
One of my favorite podcasters interviewed you.
Yes.
And I'm really still jealous that you got to meet her. And
I guess she's a big deal within the true crime community. I didn't realize that.
Let me tell you, she's the number one podcast, Southern Fried Crime.
Yeah. Southern Fried,
She is such a great podcaster.
Erica Kelly. Yeah.
Erica Kelly. Yeah. And she said, I'm just so excited for you that you got to meet her.
Yeah. She was really nice.
Your documentary won.
Yeah, best documentary feature and everything with Laura. So, anyways, my next thing's
and
not
it is
less.
Really good.
Thank you. Yes, check it out if you haven't, Laura, on YouTube. So this one's a lot less serious, but it fascinated me when I learned about it. And Alex is my co-producer on this, which he co-produced a ribbon with me, and we became very fascinated with this when we learned that we were trying to look around interesting areas around here, and so we looked around various things, and we started looking around Joplin. And Joplin has this very fascinating museum that is the Cookie Cutter Historical Museum. And so the National Cookie Cutter Historical Museum, excuse me.
It's not just from Missouri.
Yes, it's the National.
It's the United States. It includes Alaska and Hawaii.
Yes, it does. And everywhere in between. And apparently, so I don't want to give a lot of it away. I want it to sort of experience it and everything. But there's a history behind this museum, how it became there. There's a history of there's this club that spans the United States of these people who collect cookie cutters, and there's a history of cookie cutters that's very fascinating. And
and we're not talking just your Christmas cookie cutter that where you go to grandma's house or maybe a favorite aunt's house,
yes,
and have a cookie party making Christmas cookies using cookie cutters.
Yes.
So not just Christmas cookies. We're talking cutters for all types of cookies.
Yes, all types of cookies, and it's
wow.
It's an American. Yes.
For that.
Yeah, there is, and it's an American tradition. It's kind of interesting because it's kind of comes around, and they say you can sort of track the loves of America through our cookie cutters, which is it's a fascinating thing.
Wow, that is fascinating. I did not know that.
Yeah. So be on the lookout January 1st for that, and the live stream afterwards where we just kind of hang out and talk about the project and answer questions and just generally have a good time welcoming in the new year. And this is a project that we've had for a while. This is me announcing that it's officially coming out and happening. And it's a lot of different people are involved, and you'll see then whenever it comes out with all that. And it should be really interesting and really fun, and I hope that people enjoy it. I love digging into fascinating history of different things, and I like doing different things. Like each project of mine is hopefully slightly different from each of them, and so this is going into a different thing. So I hope you watch it. I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, we'll be on youtube.com/KThomas. If you don't subscribe to me there, you subscribe to me there, and you can watch that project. It should be really, really fun.
Perfect day to announce it too, because today is National Cookie Day.
Today's National Cookie Day?
Today is National Cookie Day. And
oh, perfect. That was intentional.
So it's a perfect timing to bring this up. Now, does a cookie museum have a curator?
Yes. Yes.
And you talked to the curator.
I talked to the cookie, the cookie. Yes, I talked to the cookie curator.
Wow.
Yes.
Like our friend Jennifer is a curator at the Will Rogers Museum, and so she has responsibility for literally millions of pieces of, archival information.
Yes.
So same thing. Wow. That's
yes.
amazing.
And she was like a former teacher.
Did you get to go to the archive? Did you get to see their archives?
Yes, they had a little archive there and everything, and there's a great shot in that too. There's a lot there to it.
I'm excited about that,
yeah.
because having now worked at a museum, I realize that you only what's out front that you actually see is only about 10% of the collection.
Yes, and
So
there's a different
to
thing.
see
It's within another museum. It's within the Joplin Mineral and History Museum. It's the curator of the Cookie Monster. Yeah, and so there's a whole other side to so it's within a larger museum that presents the history of Joplin, and I guess there's a lot there too, and so we touch on that a little bit, and we touch on it's wide ranging, but it's very fascinating. It's just a very kind of fascinating look at that, and I love, like you said, getting into sort of the nitty gritty of something that's just sort of different than and unique and obscure and bizarre, but there's a lot of love there too.
Yeah, and who knew that there would be a museum for cookie cutters? I mean, it really and truly. Why would anyone think that would exist? And that's amazing that you found
And why
it.
it's in Joplin is also
And
an
why
interesting.
it's in Java? Yeah, exactly.
It's
Which is
no.
kind of makes sense, though. It is the benign center of the universe, right? So, Joplin,
Yeah.
Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Well, great! I can't wait to see it, Cade. I really can't.
Yes, well, thank you. Also, this month, if you really want to, if you're missing Diane and I's banter and everything, we will be releasing Jennifer's Cade and Friends podcast, where Diane is the co-host of it. So, if you do miss our during the time that we're out, if you miss our banter, then you can get it there when it releases.
I'm certain people miss our banter.
So
I'm absolutely positive
that will be your
element.
fix there during this month. This month we'll be releasing Jennifer's podcast. So if you're missing us, you can check us out on our sister podcast, I guess you would call it, the Cade and Friends podcast.
The Cade and Friends podcast. I love co-hosting on that one because you really get to embarrass someone,
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I think if Ava ever comes down here, we need to get her on that podcast.
I think so too. Yeah,
we've got to do it. To be honest with you, I wish Ava was on our trivia team. I mean, the world of lots of facts stored between those ears.
Yeah.
That is a compliment, Ava.
Well, great. I think that's the end of the second season, Diane.
I think it is too. I've enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed it too. I really have.
Can't wait to talk about it in summary.
Yes, and talk about our favorite. Yes, that also is important to note. We'll be putting out our best of and worst of second season of Double Feature Movie Club, so that'll be coming out soon and everything. A lot of great movies, a lot of not too many awful movies. Even some of my worst ones, it's like I can see some redeeming qualities of them and everything. But
I just listed it under movies Cade made me watch.
I enjoyed the show. We talked about up top what I like about it and everything, but the most thing that I love is spending the time with you, Diane.
It's absolutely spending the time with you, Mr. Cade.
Well, great. On that very wholesome note, we're going to end the second season of Double Feature Movie Club.
Great.
We appreciate our audience and everything who tune in live, watch us live Sundays here on my YouTube channel or Twitch. We also have a Twitch that we don't really talk about too much.
We have a Twitch.
We need to do more with the Twitch.
Yeah, we need to do more with the Twitch. We'll learn to Twitch more.
Yeah, yeah, we will. Other thing in the new year, I kind of want to incorporate some TikTok stuff since we do have a TikTok audience that promote this a little bit more. So that will probably.
I certainly have a TikTok audience. Yes. Yeah.
So incorporating that more will be something in season 3 that we'll experiment with. A lot of things down the road. So we're excited to be back in February of next year for season 3. We'll see what we do. Should be fun. A lot of the same similar stuff that you love, hopefully, and a lot of the guests that you love will be invited back. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you. Anything else, Diane?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, that's second season. 30 episodes. Bye.
30 movies. 60 movies.
60
like
movies, 30 double feature.
Whoa.
See you next year.
That's right.